They say fences are meant to divide. But what if yours could tell a story instead? Not the kind built by perfect blueprints, but the kind shaped by weathered wood, forgotten crates, rusted tin, and your own two hands. If you've been craving a garden space that feels personal, poetic, and a little bit wild, then you're exactly where you need to be. Welcome to Arkan Aesthetic Studio, where we explore slow-crafted beauty, soul-soothing design, and ideas you can actually build with love. In this video, we're diving into rustic garden fence ideas, not just to inspire, but to stir something inside you. This video comes with timestamps, so feel free to jump to the style that fits your vibe. And if there's a look you'd like to recreate, just drop a comment. I'll be sharing full DIY tutorials on the community tab for those ready to get their hands dirty. You might scroll past 1,000 faces today, but this one, right here, comes with roots. This isn't content. It's connection. Every view, every click, every kind word helps something grow. Not just this channel, but a small dream shared by a real family. So if something here speaks to you, know that when you subscribe, you're not just supporting a creator. You're watering something that matters. Thank you for pausing. Thank you for choosing to see me. One, wooden pallet fences. There's something incredibly honest about weathered wood. It doesn't try to be perfect. It simply holds the memory of where it's been. In today's video, we're exploring a series of rustic garden fence ideas that breathe life into even the tiniest outdoor spaces. Not every backyard needs to be grand. Sometimes, the magic is in a quiet corner, in the play of light against raw textures, in the rhythm of leaves brushing against handmade slats. The fence in this first scene, crafted from humble wooden pallets, may look simple at first glance. But look again. Colorful hanging planters turn the vertical space into a living tapestry. Vines stretch and curl like they've found a home. A weathered stool and a watering can sit nearby as if waiting for their story to continue. This isn't a set, and I'm not a professional landscaper. These are just ideas, gathered like fallen leaves and shared with the hope that they spark something in you. Maybe you have pallets leaning in a shed, or perhaps a few spare pots in your kitchen. This design is doable. It's imperfect in all the best ways. In the second frame, a narrow path runs between the fence and the house, often a forgotten space. But here, the same pallet structure becomes a vertical garden wall. The terracotta pots with trailing ivy soften the geometry, and suddenly, the walk from front gate to back door becomes something else. A transition, a small breath of nature tucked between walls. And yes, what I'm sharing today isn't a step-by-step guide. It's a suggestion, a gentle nudge. Every home is different. Every hand builds differently. But these are real ideas, created with intention and offered with openness. Something you can shape into your own story. Now the final image shows a pallet fence kissed with a coat of white paint. Imperfectly done, and all the better for it. The wear shows through, giving it character. Rows of flower pots line the surface, each one like a punctuation mark in a cheerful sentence. It doesn't feel artificial. It feels like someone cared. That's what rustic is about. Not just old wood or vintage charm. It's about letting go of polish and choosing warmth, choosing realness. If you're watching this with your cup of tea or taking notes for your weekend project, remember, this is your space. You don't need permission to make it beautiful. You just need a little time, a few tools, and a willingness to see potential where others might not. And that's where the joy begins. Two, reclaimed Barnwood patchwork. There's a kind of beauty that only time can shape. The kind that doesn't come from perfect cuts or brand new materials, but from weathered surfaces and quiet wear, each one holding a little memory of where it's been. This reclaimed Barnwood fence isn't about symmetry. It's not about polish. It's about story. Some of the planks lean slightly. Others still carry faint flecks of old paint, perhaps once red or blue, now faded by sun and softened by rain. Together, they form a textured patchwork, like a rustic quilt stretched upright in the garden. Galvanized metal buckets hang in a gentle row, filled with fragrant lavender that sways in the breeze. A few boards below show patches of moss, nature's slow reclaiming. And scattered among the wood are subtle touches: a leaning chair, a ceramic jug, or a small birdhouse perched like a sentinel. I'm not presenting this as a tutorial, nor claiming to be an expert in construction. What I share here are just moments of inspiration, real, approachable, and grounded in the idea that you can create beauty with what you already have. These fences were built with what was on hand: salvaged wood, a little time, and a deep respect for imperfection. In another corner, you'll see planks arranged like puzzle pieces, locked together with no strict pattern. Daisies in small terracotta pots rest on hand-attached shelves. You might even notice a few nail holes that no longer serve a purpose, but still remain. That's the charm. Nothing is hidden, nothing is erased. The best part of this kind of project is that it doesn't demand much. Not money, not perfection, not power tools you don't own. Just an open mind and a willingness to work with what's right in front of you. This isn't staged. The lighting is real. Morning sun filtering through leaves, highlighting the grain of the wood and the smile of a daisy. Whether you have a full weekend to work, or just a quiet afternoon to imagine, let this be a gentle reminder. Rustic beauty isn't out of reach. You don't need a designer's blueprint to make something that feels like home. Maybe your fence won't look exactly like this. Maybe it'll look even better, because it's yours. Three, mini woven fences, Willow bamboo. Sometimes, the most beautiful boundaries are the ones that feel like they've grown there all along. In this video, I'm inviting you into the quiet world of woven fences. Simple structures made from willow, bamboo, or twigs, yet full of life and personality. They're not tall, or loud, or imposing. They don't try to dominate the space. They just hold it, softly. What you're seeing here is a handmade bamboo screen wrapped gently with jute twine. The pieces aren't cut perfectly. They bend, they shift, and that's exactly the point. Tucked into a balcony, surrounded by clay pots brimming with basil, mint, and thyme, it feels like a little corner of countryside suspended above the city. This isn't an expert's project. It's a personal one. A creative idea that anyone could bring to life with a bit of time and some simple materials. I'm not offering a blueprint, just a quiet suggestion. Maybe your next fence doesn't need to be a fence at all. Maybe it can be a backdrop to your favorite herbs, or a frame for climbing beans. Further along, in a winding garden path bordered by willow fences, nature has begun to spill over. The twigs, hand-woven between uneven posts, feel more like sculpture than construction. Wildflowers lean against them, almost protectively. The sunlight dances through the gaps and the shadows form soft lines across the earth. This kind of rustic build doesn't cost much, financially or emotionally. There's a freedom in weaving your own shapes, allowing the branches to guide your hands. No precision, no stress, just rhythm, breath, and earth. And then there's this last view, a close-up of a woven willow fence pressed against blooming lavender. The fence is low, barely reaching your knee, but the scent in the air rises high. The city feels far away, even if it's just a step behind you. There's nothing artificial here, no cinematic filter or curated stillness. Just the realness of handmade effort and honest materials. Please keep in mind, these are simply inspirations. What I share here are small ideas, offered in the spirit of possibility. They're not exact instructions, but rather gentle invitations to create something your own hands can be proud of. Because at the end of the day, a fence doesn't just mark a space. It shapes it. And with something as simple as a few twigs and your own 2 hands, you can make something both grounding and quietly beautiful. Four, painted color fence accents. There's a quiet joy in pastel paint and warm mason jars. This garden fence doesn't shout. It hums, painted in a soft, faded green, just enough color to invite the eye, but never too much to steal the scene. It's chipped in places, weathered where the sun has touched it year after year, and strung across its length, a row of mason jars gently glows with warm light, like fireflies caught in a slow dance. I didn't build this exact fence, and I'm not suggesting yours should look identical. What I share here is simply a whisper of an idea, something you might shape with your own brush, in your own time. In another corner of this tiny outdoor space, a pastel rainbow stretches, pale green meeting peach in the corner like a sunrise frozen on wood. The jars swing softly from strings above, filled with solar fairy lights that catch the fading sun. There's a bench nearby, the kind you don't mind getting paint on. And when evening falls, the whole garden begins to glow, not with spotlight brilliance, but with a kind of honesty. Maybe you've thought about painting your fence, or maybe this is the first time the idea has entered your mind. Either way, it's possible. It doesn't require professional tools or artistic training. Just a few cans of paint, a weekend, and a little love for the rough edges. The blue fence you see here, washed with a shade between ocean and sky, is strung with jars that flicker like tiny stars. Below them, wild pinks and purples bloom without symmetry. The moment is unposed. The charm is in how little effort it seems to take, how real it all feels. And that's the spirit behind this. Not perfection, not pristine, just beauty born from care, from creativity, from saying, yes, I'll try. I always remind my viewers, these ideas aren't rules. They're inspirations. A suggestion that maybe your own backyard fence can become something more than just a border. Maybe it can be part of your story. So take it as a seed. And if it grows into something beautiful in your hands, well, that's the best kind of magic. Five, decorative fence add-ons, signs, tools, vintage decor. Fences, by their nature, are meant to separate. But in some gardens, they bring things together. This one, for instance, doesn't just mark the edge of a yard, it tells stories. It displays memories. It captures joy in the simplest of objects. A painted wooden sign, a rusted whisk, a watering can that once served a purpose but now simply adds charm. These fence decorations aren't expensive. They aren't designer pieces. They're gathered, some from kitchen drawers, some from flea markets, and some from forgotten boxes in the attic. And somehow, when placed together on weathered wood, they feel like they were always meant to be there. In the first scene, phrases like "be happy" and "sunshine ahead" pop out in hand-lettered brush strokes. Wobbly, imperfect, utterly delightful. Between them dangle a whisk, a watering can, and even a whisker-thin piece of string where the wind sometimes plays. It feels playful, like a summer afternoon spent making something just because it felt good to do so. And really, that's the heart of it. I'm not showing you a manual or a model to follow perfectly. These are just pieces of inspiration, snapshots of what's possible when you look at your space with softness and curiosity. Anyone can do this. Truly. There's no right layout, no matching set, just emotion, texture, and time. Elsewhere, a group of vintage picture frames, some filled, some empty, adorn the fence like a gallery wall under the sky. Inside are family smiles, childhood glances, black and white echoes of laughter. Hanging beneath are old iron keys and dried wreaths, each whispering of a past that still matters. On the ground, painted stones smile up at you. In another frame, a rusty colander becomes a flower pot. An enamel mug leans sideways with ivy trailing down, like hair escaping a braid. The light is real, no edits here. Just the kind of brightness that falls across a late morning garden, where everything is still, but gently alive. Let me gently remind you, this isn't a step-by-step guide. What you see is just a suggestion, a creative nudge. You don't need an expert. You don't need perfection. Just a fence, a few spare objects, and a heart that enjoys putting them together. Because what hangs on a fence isn't always just decoration. Sometimes, it's an invitation to pause and smile. Six, living fences with climbing plants. Not all fences are meant to keep things out. Some are built to invite things in. This fence, laced with jasmine and kissed by the morning sun, does just that. It doesn't shout for attention. It waits quietly as the vines slowly claim it. Leaf by leaf, tendril by tendril. There's something beautiful about a structure that becomes more alive the less it tries to control. A handmade trellis, tied with twine, now covered in greens. The sunlight dances through the leaves, painting patterns on the soil below. You can almost smell the jasmine as it opens in the warmth. It's peaceful, and yes, simple. This kind of fence doesn't ask much of you. Just time, patience, and a willingness to let things be just a little wild. You don't need a plan or a perfect build. What you see here is simply an idea, a starting point, something you can take and reshape to fit your space, your plants, your story. In another frame, a lattice of branches, lightly tied at the corners, hosts a burst of sweet peas and morning glory. Their blooms peek between the gaps, as if curious about the world beyond. The fence isn't polished. The posts lean ever so slightly, but the imperfections make it feel honest, human, real. A worn glove rests at the base, forgotten, maybe, or simply waiting to be picked up again. There are stains on the wood, and the twine is fraying. But nothing about this scene feels broken. It feels lived in, cared for. Further along, a taller structure stands in a field of green, its crisscrossed frame heavy with climbing beans. You can hear the bees. You can see the light shifting behind the leaves as the sun begins to lower. It's a fence, yes, but it's also a wall of life. And that's the heart of this idea. To build something not just to separate, but to support. Not just to frame your garden, but to help it bloom. I'm not an architect or a landscape designer. These are simply shared inspirations. What you create might look different, and I truly hope it does. Because your garden deserves something unique. Something made with your hands and shaped by your rhythm. Let it grow. Let it climb. Let it become something beautiful. Seven, upcycled objects as fences, bed frames, shutters. In a world that often rushes toward the new, there's something quietly powerful about giving old things a second life. Here, an old bed frame, long retired from bedrooms and dreams, has found a new purpose. It stands proudly as a gate, delicate metalwork now mingling with climbing vines, casting lacy shadows on the garden path. It's a little rusty in places, a little crooked, but somehow perfect. This kind of fence wasn't bought. It was found, pieced together from cast-off shutters, weathered doors, mismatched slats. Some still carry traces of their past, old handles, flaking paint, hinges that squeak in the wind. And yet, here they are, standing tall among the flowers, guarding not just a garden, but a story. I'm not showing you this as a how-to. I'm not suggesting every viewer should start collecting old doors tomorrow. But if you happen to have one, if you pass by a shutter at a thrift shop or see a headboard on the curb, maybe this is your sign. That with a little imagination, it could become something beautiful again. In one frame, pastel-colored shutters stand shoulder to shoulder like a choir of characters. Some are bold in yellow, others quiet in mint. Their paint is chipped, their slats imperfect, but they form a wall full of life, soft, whimsical, and real. In another, an entire garden entrance is built from fragments of homes, a patchwork of panels and window frames. The gate in the center, white and delicate, welcomes you in like a whisper. Plants bloom around its base, and you can almost hear the creak of old hinges as you step through. And that's the beauty of upcycling. It doesn't hide history, it honors it. It doesn't need a matching set or a flawless finish. Just vision and a little faith that even the forgotten can become the unforgettable. Let this be a gentle idea, nothing more. Something to keep in your back pocket for the right moment. Because sometimes, the most meaningful fences are the ones built from things that once had a different purpose. 8. Driftwood and Beachwood fence panels. There's a certain kind of wisdom carried in wood that's been washed by waves. This garden fence wasn't built from a store-bought plan. It was gathered, piece by piece, from the shore. Driftwood, bleached by the sun and softened by salt, tied together with thick rope and memory. The fence leans, sways, even splinters a little. And that's exactly why it feels so human. You can feel the ocean nearby, even if it's only in your mind. In one frame, driftwood pieces stand tall like coastal sentinels. Some are knotted, some twisted, and every one different. Strung between them, bits of sea glass catch the light. The shadows they cast aren't sharp, they curve, like ripples in the sand. And just beside it, a tiny circular garden, fenced low, as if built by hand on a quiet Sunday morning. The wood here isn't perfect. It bows and bends, but it holds strong, bound by coarse hemp rope. In the center, a painted sign, Seaside Garden. No grand flourish, just care. And that's the heart of this idea. It's not about instructions. It's not about measurements. This is simply one of those soul-fed projects you might try someday when you find the right materials or the right mood. A driftwood fence doesn't ask for polish. It invites in the sea breeze and the wild. In one corner of this vision, a collection of beechwood leans loosely around coastal succulents and grasses. Shells hang gently from twine, clinking softly in the wind. You don't need much for this kind of magic, just nature and the willingness to shape it gently. I share this not as a blueprint, but as a whisper of possibility. A little nudge to see more in the things we might overlook. To build not just for boundaries, but for beauty. Let the waves carry the inspiration. Let your garden catch it. Nine, corrugated metal and wood combo fence. In a quiet backyard, where practicality meets rustic charm, lies a fence that tells a story not through elaborate carvings or color, but through texture, purpose, and raw material. This is not the kind of beauty that shouts. It hums gently, echoing the character of its makers. A corrugated metal and timber fence, simple in essence, but deeply rooted in intention. Here, old metal sheets reclaimed from sheds and rooftops find new life framed in cedar wood. The rust is not an imperfection but a warm, earthy patina, earned from seasons past. The wooden beams, thick and grounding, frame the metal like artwork. Underneath, plants quietly gather, some brushing against the panels, others just beginning to climb. They soften the edges with green tenderness, reminding us that nature always finds a way to meet us halfway. One particular corner in this serene passage is narrow and shaded, yet full of purpose. A vertical herb garden grows proudly on the wall, a frame of nourishment and sustainability. Mint, basil, perhaps a bit of thyme. Every leaf feels like a whisper from someone's peaceful morning ritual. It's in this modest nook where design meets utility, and where DIY dreams often begin. Another scene, sunlit and simple, reveals a homemade bench set against the metal's ribbed face. It's a spot to pause, to breathe, to watch the shadows shift as afternoon light dances on the galvanized surface. The wood beneath you is weathered, honest in its aging, and beside you, the fence reflects just enough light to feel alive, without ever demanding attention. This fence may not be fancy, but it is real. It's a kind of structure that doesn't need much from you, just a bit of time, a few tools, and an appreciation for rough edges. And while every nail and board might seem humble on its own, together they form something quietly beautiful. These are simply inspirations, ideas you might take and make your own. What you see here isn't a blueprint but a story starter. Something to gently nudge you toward that DIY project you've been imagining. If it sparks your creativity or brings a new idea to your garden space, then it's done exactly what it was meant to do. Fence made from crates or fruit boxes. In the quiet corners of a backyard, sometimes beauty comes not from perfection, but from repurposed simplicity, and perhaps nowhere is this more evident than in fences made from humble crates and fruit boxes. There's something tenderly nostalgic about weathered wood, paint that's faded like memories, and the quirky rhythm of uneven lines that only hand-stacked boxes can offer. The first image feels like a poetic wall of color and scent. Old crates painted in tones of mint, blush, and sun-bleached timber, layered like pages in a garden journal. Some are left empty, inviting the breeze to pass through. Others cradle galvanized metal planters brimming with herbs like basil and oregano, their leaves spilling slightly over the edge. A floral glove hangs quietly on the side, as if the gardener just stepped away for a moment. This arrangement isn't just decor, it's an evolving living wall, a creative expression of care and cultivation. In the next, a simpler but equally joyful version unfolds. Here, fruit boxes with bright produce prints have been cleverly attached to a picket fence with nothing more than zip ties. Inside, basil and mint share space with sunny marigolds, herbs and flowers coexisting in harmony. It's a perfect example of rustic whimsy meeting practicality. For those watching, know that this kind of setup doesn't require expensive tools or advanced carpentry skills. Just time, a little effort, and the willingness to play with what you already have. These aren't rigid instructions, just gentle inspiration that's entirely possible to recreate on your own. And finally, a longer structure, almost like a low, wooden bookshelf, is crafted from vintage crates arranged into neat cubbies. Some are home to terracotta pots of impatience, others to old watering cans, mismatched mugs, and weathered tin lanterns. Each compartment tells a story, whether it's of flowers tended with care or a quiet moment enjoyed beside the garden. The beauty of this setup isn't only in how it looks, but in how it makes you feel, grounded, warm, and inspired to try something similar. Let this be a reminder that fences need not be barriers. Sometimes, they are backdrops for imagination. What you see here isn't a tutorial, it's a vision. An invitation to repurpose, to reuse, and to reinvent what surrounds you. Because often, the most charming corners of a garden aren't the ones bought brand new, but the ones built by heart and hand. If this video meant something to you, please know that subscribing means the world to me. You're not just supporting content, you're supporting a dream that keeps my family going. Thank you, truly. I'd also love to hear from you. What did you enjoy the most? Is there anything I could do better to keep inspiring or simply entertaining you? Your feedback helps this channel grow with heart and purpose. Let me know in the comments. I read every one.